joined by Rory Hamilton. Rory, thanks a lot for coming on. How are you doing?
Very good. I'm glad that we have at long last got this opportunity to chat, because we've been trying to organise a time and a date for this for quite a few months. So yeah, good to be on. Thank you.
So I just want to start off by asking you what your early football memories are.
Well, I mean, yeah, my early football memories, I go back to kicking a ball about the garden, I didn't go to that many professional games until I got a little bit older. I did go to a couple of Dumbarton and a couple of Clydebank games. They were the first matches that I went to. But yeah, I played with Clyde Centre Boys Club from, I think, about the age of, I think I must have been 8 when I started. Because I started under 10s, but I had 2 years in the under 10s. So, and then played all the way through, I think until like under 16s. So yeah, I mean, and great times play. We had a decent team actually. Nobody's gone on to make a career out of football, but it was those were good times.
Never close to making it. Never any trials at any academies or anything.
I had a couple of trials. Hibs offered me a trial, and Celtic, and then we played in a friendly against Celtic, and I'd scored twice, and in the last minute we were 2-0 up, and in the last minute I was clean through 1-on-1 with the goalie, and I hit it straight at him, and then one of the scouts said to our coach afterwards that they'd have taken me if I'd scored that.
Could have been a lot different then.
Yeah.
So a degree in sports science, I see.
I went to Edinburgh University after school, but when I finished school, I wasn't too certain of what I wanted to study. And I went away to Guyana for a year, and I with Project Trust, who are a charity organisation, and worked as a teacher in South America for it was bang on 12 months. Taught English and chemistry and science, and played a lot of football and cricket with the kids. So that was brilliant. And when I was out there, sport has always really been my passion. And I think I was kind of searching for something that keeps you close to that, and you can look into a career, which I've continued when I have actually developed my career in broadcasting. So yeah, I wasn't too sure, and then that came up. My mum had sent me a prospectus for it, and I thought, yeah, that sounds like something that could keep me interested. So yeah, I mean, I haven't really used my degree in my career, but yeah, it was good time in Edinburgh.
When did you first start showing a keen interest in commentary and broadcasting?
I don't know. I mean, like we were, I was mentioning kicking the ball about in the garden, and when I think back to that, I'm sure that, because I had 2 older sisters and they weren't interested in playing football, so I'm sure I was running about the garden, not even really noticing that I was commentating on myself playing. But to be honest, I didn't grow up thinking I want to be a commentator. I don't think I even thought, even until I got into the industry, that it actually was an attainable job. And so it was just once I started working at STV on Scotsport, and I just started recording my voice onto DVDs at the time, and just seeing what it sounded like. I got a chance to do a game just to practice for them. Archie McPherson was doing the real commentary that was getting broadcast, but I was given the mic, and it was recorded into a separate channel and all that sort of thing. So I got the chance to do that, and then critique it a little bit and start to try and develop. But it really wasn't until, so I was at Scotsport, and then I went to Setanta for 2 or 3 years, 3 years. And it wasn't until Setanta finished that I actually got my first opportunities to do any commentary. And it actually arose because I was working on a rugby program, STV Rugby, and just because I was a assistant producer. And so because that's all my background was in production. So I was cutting match highlights and all that sort of thing. And after the first week of the program, they were going through feedback from viewers and things like that, and they were saying, well, it's a league that's got Welsh, Irish, and Scottish teams in it, but why are we broadcasting in Scotland and we've only got Irish and Welsh commentators? So I sort of joked in the meeting to Colin Davidson, was like, I've been badgering you for the last 3 years about wanting to do commentary, and it's sort of laughed, and then he messaged me. I was staying up in the Highlands at the time, and he messaged me on the way down and said, how you made that comment in the meeting where you're doing Edinburgh against Connacht tomorrow night, so first commentary. So that was pretty good.
How did the opportunity come up for you initially to get into STV and get into like a sort of big broadcasting company like that?
Yeah, it was when I was at uni, and I used to come in on a Sunday, and I would sit in this little cupboard down a tight corridor when you didn't really see very many people, and you just sit there and upload the manager interviews onto their website, and that was basically. And I went in. And I mean, once you paid your train fare, you didn't have much change back from the fee that you were getting for it. But it was such a good way into the industry, because after I'd done that for a couple of years, they asked me what I was doing over after the summer, and I just said, well, I don't know, finishing uni, so I'll be out looking for a job. And they turned around and said, well, would you like a job? We can offer you one. So it came from that. So it's often when I do a lot of these interviews, and that's always my main advice is say yes to any opportunity, because you never know where it might actually lead.
Can you remember the first professional game that you commented on when it was solely you doing the commentary? Because you said you had the next one.
Yeah, the first. So I did that Edinburgh Connacht game, but it was for highlights. The first live one that I did was Glasgow Edinburgh. So it was all rugby in the early days. So yeah, Glasgow Edinburgh up at Firhill was the first live game that I did. They only had 2 live games that season, and they were just either side of Christmas. So I did the one at Murrayfield the week after. So those were the first, that sort of nervous buzz of doing a live game. Those were the first 2. I'm not sure what my first live football game was. I'm not too sure. I think it probably would have been. I think it would have been for Rangers TV. I did a couple of seasons of that, and it would have been a game at Ibrox. It doesn't stick in my mind.
And when you're saying about the commentary, and it's obviously getting into football, when did the opportunity to start working for Premier Sports and BT come about, when it was kind of like solely football driven?
Yeah, well, I mean, I was freelance for. I mean, I'm still freelance now, but I did 8 year of being solely freelance, and the majority of that work I did with Sky Sports. So I mean, that so many good people in there, and that was where I started getting first opportunity. So I remember my first live game for Sky, which that was a big moment, and it was Arbroath against Rangers in the Scottish Cup, and I got quite a lot of chances that season to. I think maybe in the last 4 months of the season, I maybe did 8 or 10 games, so it was great, but it was harder to difficult to get opportunities after that. And so eventually, when Derek Ray left BT Sport, an opening came up, and it's all people that I've known from my time at Setanta and Sky. They were then in at BT or Sunset and Vine. So you know people, and it helps you. You've developed your relationship with them before you've even started working with them. So, but to get that call to now, then I think you can call yourself a football commentator. Whereas before I was doing like 3 shifts on a Saturday. It would be like doing Gillette Soccer Saturday, then you'd run into STV and put the commentary on the SPFL YouTube highlights, and then you'd be up to Blythswood Street to put your voice on the Goals on Sunday edit for Sky. And so every Saturday of the season I was working until 1-2 in the morning.
That's crazy.
So I was doing like 10 shifts a week. It was a lot, but it gave me the opportunity, and then eventually, you get the chance to solely be a football commentator, with Premier and with BT, and that, it's been great. Trying, hope I'm making it work.
Oh yeah. See, like obviously as part of football, how much prep goes in? How much prep do you go into in terms of preparing yourself for the game? And do you think people realise how much you actually have to prepare yourself stats-wise and obviously knowledge-wise as well?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I've not got the best memory in the world, I would say. So I probably do a lot more. I write out cards for every player. Then I do all my stats on the game, so that it's all there. Sometimes you don't need it. Sometimes it's just the process that's helpful. I would say like 2 days. So big game like tomorrow, PSV at Ibrox. It's probably a good 2 days. And maybe, like I say, you maybe don't actually use it, but it puts you in the mindset for the game. But what I would say is that that's the paperwork. That's getting everything down into the right place, so that when you're in the game, you know where everything is. It's all color coded. I know which part of the paper that I need to put it in. But I would say it's an ongoing, that knowledge is just like an ongoing thing. Like I'm immersed in football anyway because I'm interested in it. So when the first thing that I search in the morning is like what football news, what's happening. My Twitter feed's full of football and rugby accounts that they're constantly just keeping you updated on it.
Does it become a bit of an addiction, just to make sure everything's so spot on? Addiction's maybe not the right word, but
yeah, I just think you're always best to be prepared. A lot of it actually, I think, is almost trying to put yourself into the mindset of a fan or a club, and to work out what exactly this game means to everyone that is around it.
Yeah,
and it's not necessarily what it means to you, but it's a lot of reading. Sometimes taking a phrase from an article that you like the wording of. There's all sorts. I always script the very top before a ball's kicked. When the teams come out, you've probably got about 5 minutes. So I write all that down, cancel it out if I don't like it, and just re-script it to get it into a place where I think sums up what the 90 minutes mean to both clubs.
You've touched on it a wee bit in terms of Rangers' journey, and I wanted to use some of the teams they've maybe played as a bit of an example. So USG, for example, obviously you're not going to know as much about their players as you would from obviously one of the clubs here. So what's your first step in terms of trying to learn more about those players, and how are you grabbing your stats and all that for a game like that?
Yeah, so for a lot of games, not all of them, but a lot of games, we get sent a stats pack from there's a guy called Davy Gillen, who's best in the business. He sets out his all the stats, so he does a lot of that research, which it saves a lot of time, and he picks absolute gems that you would never find yourself. He's an incredibly knowledgeable man. So that's probably my first port of call, and it's pages and pages and pages. There's stuff on every player, all their history, their appearances, goals, all that kind of thing. So I get all that onto paper, condense it down so that it's in a form that I can relate to it. And as you say, with European teams or maybe players that you don't know, I spend quite a lot of time on YouTube, finding clips of them in their native land, to get the right pronunciation on a player. I always think that's quite an important thing to do. A lot of players have come up to me and thanked me for that. Their families back home have commented on it, and they like. I just think it's a respect thing.
Yeah.
To get a player's name right it's not that difficult sometimes. I mean, there's some teams that it's very difficult to actually find enough clips, but you get there eventually. And I quite like that. I find the language quite interesting as well. So it can take time.
Using Rangers' journey as an example again, you've even just recently managed to travel to so many different cities and stuff. How good is that for you, getting to see these places whilst working?
I mean, it's fabulous. I love travel. I love food and just going to different places, different cultures. It's fantastic. Really, I'm so fortunate to be able to get to do that. The first real one that I got to do with BT was in St. Petersburg, which was a place I'd always wanted to go to, and that was absolutely incredible. It was about -30 as well, which was tough, but it's amazing to. And do you know what? You were really fortunate as well. During COVID, other people weren't able to travel, and we did. So yeah, very, very fortunate.
Have you got a certain place that you just constantly love going back to in particular, or just love them all?
That's a good question. I don't know. I love Prague. Prague's a great city.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That's a really good, and I was lucky enough to go last season as well, because Rangers played Sparta. So we were out there for a couple of days, and it's that's a pretty good place. And I'd definitely put Prague high up on my list of places to keep going back and back to.
Is that for the football and not the nightlife?
Well, it's a good combination of both.
So obviously, again, commentating on the Europa League final, does that work the same way as maybe a player would? Is that the sort of pinnacle for you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we were talking about that leading up to the game with colleagues, and saying that this is possibly the biggest game you'll ever work on. I did Scotland England in the Euros down at Wembley, which was pretty massive.
Yeah.
But the Europa League final, I honestly, I didn't think that a Scottish team would get to a European final again.
No,
I thought those days were gone, and there's enough stats to back that up. I mean, the Europa League, I think, had been won by Spanish teams in something like 10 of the last 11. So it was something ridiculous, because Sevilla have been hogging it for that long. But finances dictate so much in football now, and the big five leagues are so much richer than everywhere else, that for Rangers to do that last season was absolutely unbelievable.
What's your thoughts on the journey they had? Just absolutely incredible, eh?
It was brilliant, and they just got that momentum, and it just each time we were going to a game and we were thinking, this will be the last one. this is the last time, and they'll get knocked out next round. But Ibrox it played its part, and people talk about players not being able to play in certain atmospheres in Europe, but Borussia Dortmund are vastly experienced. Yeah. Red Star Belgrade players play in intimidating atmospheres every week, and Leipzig are they've got some of the best up and coming players in Europe, and they were all spooked by what was going on, and you really did have to just take a moment to yourself in some of those games at Ibrox and just look around and try and take in, try and understand, what you were experiencing, because it's such a sensory overload. It was absolutely amazing.
Did it get to the point as well? I don't know if that sounds stupid, but even when you're commentating, is it hard to even just stay concentrated on it when all that noise is going on around you?
That's the main thing, because your brain is taking so much. It's just you're buzzing. When I get home from games like that, I'm only 10 minutes from Ibrox, from 15 minutes from Celtic Park. And when you come back from games like that, Hampden, it's 20-minute drive. You're still back. I can't sleep after them. I'm just absolutely buzzing, and everything's going over your head. I think I found that for the Leipzig game at home, that was the one that I noticed it the most, and actually exactly what you're saying is that you need to just take a moment and remind yourself that you're you're doing a job, but at the same time you've got to try and get across that passion and try and dictate to the people that aren't there just exactly what it's like.
And you put up onto something else, put up a tweet that went a wee bit viral last week. It's good timing for doing this. How important do you think it is that Scottish football get a TV deal that sort of represents what we've got as a country, footballing wise?
It's vital. For far too long, it's been undervalued, undersold. For clubs to have any chance of competing in Europe, then they need the finances to be able to do it. I'm not, at no time do I expect the Scottish Premiership to be sold like the English Premier League and them to be getting figures in the billions. But I've been around football and TV for long enough to know exactly what it's worth to the companies, and they need to be putting up more, but they're not just gonna do that. It needs to be sold better, in my opinion, and to have a little bit of belief in the product. It's crucial for the game to continue to be what it is up here.
Do you think we undermarket it? And do you think part of that's maybe because of what we get as a TV deal?
Possibly. It can be difficult having such a big neighbour in terms of their league in England, and you can fall into the shadows a little bit. But Scottish football's got so many unique selling points that it's got an awful lot to offer. So I think the broadcasters have had very good deals out of Scottish football. It's maybe about, but at the same time, it's in their best interest as well to invest in the league. That's essentially how it started in England, was they overpaid for it.
Yeah.
But that allowed them to have more money, to attract better players, to keep the best players. In Scotland, you can't keep the best players. Calvin Bassey's gone, Joe Aribo's gone, Odsonne Edouard went, Moussa Dembele went. that doesn't happen so much in England because they've got the finances to be able to attract them and keep them, more importantly, because even if you get a really good young player, look at Calvin Ramsey or Nathan Patterson, you know, they're away before they've played a season.
Yeah.
And they're off to big clubs in England, which is great. And I hope they really make the most of their careers. But you know, you don't want your young players leaving before they've played. You'd look to get 150 games out of a young player before then moving them on.
It's great to hear your thoughts on it and the fact that you're so passionate on it, considering how prominent you are, obviously, in broadcasting in Scotland. And I think that's people like you speaking about stuff like that is probably only going to help us in the long run as well. Because I think people are now sort of standing up and realising, wait a second, this maybe isn't quite right.
Yeah, and you can now start comparing it to leagues all over the place. I don't think we have enough games being broadcast on TV. That's where I find you know, it can be marketed much better. Yeah, and some more money would be good to keep the best players here.
Definitely. Well, Rory, thanks very much for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate you coming on.
All right, brilliant. Thanks, Ross.
Thank you.